What's up, everybody? This is Dominic D'Angelo of SEScoops.com and adfreeshows.com. One of a kind with RVD and you name it, Greg Gagne and Magnum TA. But I am here today. Happy to have with me here Peter Rosenberg of the Michael K Show, but he's also of WWE notoriety and Cheap Heat Wrestling. You name it, Pete. You're all over the place, man. Good to meet with you, man.
You have to do a lot these days, Dom, to put it all together, and somehow I'm doing that. I'm having a pretty good time doing it.
It's pretty amazing from a freelance writer perspective and doing the hustle. It's something to really, really respect him. And it's very, very cool to see you do. And it's just all over. I knew who you were through WWE. Honestly, that's how I got it started off. But then later on, I started tuning into the Michael K Show, and it's like my favorite sports show going. So
that's really cool, man. It's fun. I meet a lot of people who found out about sort of the things that I do. It's always sort of a different order. So that's very interesting. I appreciate that. And yeah, I've been with WWE now for on and off for 8 years, 7-8 years. So yeah, it's been a little while.
How about that? Well, let's start it off. You grew up a wrestling fan, and how did you get into the wrestling fandom? Like what really hooked you?
Yeah, so I was 8 years old in 1987. Sort of at like the perfect age to appreciate the lead up to WrestleMania 3.
Mm-hmm.
So really from basically from post, I'd say WrestleMania 2 until WrestleMania 5, 6, maybe 6, I was very intensely a fan. And then I'd say less intense over the next several years. And then by the time I got to college, and I know this is crazy, and my friend Sam Roberts always likes to give me a hard time for this. I was fully out by the time the Attitude Era was happening. I was kind of I was aware of it, and I knew who all the big names were, but I was not watching. I was busy doing college radio and doing all kinds of other stuff, and just wasn't there for it. And then kind of came back to it in my early 20s. Around the time John Cena was sort of hitting his stride. And then I ended up, going back and buying I have a crazy DVD collection. I went back and bought everything, kind of relived it all, and got really hardcore then around 05 and spent the next 10 years just really getting after it until I eventually ended up getting to be there in late 2016.
How about that? Yeah, no, I was the same boat though. Once college hit, dude, I fell out of wrestling for and that was 2003 and stuff. And I didn't get back into it till maybe late 2000s and stuff like that again. So it's
I know it's a bummer because there were kids in college who were watching the Monday Night Wars and flipping back and forth. And for me, it was oh yeah, I used to be into wrestling. I'm just not anymore. It wasn't I looked down at it. It wasn't I thought it was stupid. It's just my interest in taking me into sports and music and away from it. And then I went back, and when I went back, I went really hard. And honestly, I credit Cena with a lot of that, because early Cena, when I heard his theme song was this hip hop theme song, and I heard that he sampled the rapper's MOP, the Lil Fame's voice was on the song. I was like, oh wait, he sampled MOP. What's this? Who is this guy? And it's funny because it's not I became the biggest Cena fan.
Yeah.
But it was just enough to pique my interest, to make me go, they have a rap guy now? Oh, let me see what's going on here. I got to see what this is about. And then it was kind of the other stuff going on at that time. Cena was cool, but it was the emergence of Randy. It was JBL and Booker T, and just all of Shawn Michaels and Hogan, and there was all kinds of fun stuff going on at that time when I came back. So it drew me right back in.
Well, you mentioned it too, and obviously you're a music aficionado and hip hop in particular. And it's so crazy, the crossover between hip hop and pro wrestling. There's so many people, so many groups that name drop wrestlers and rap songs, from Wu-Tang Clan to Outkast to you name it. There's so many different ones. Did you kind of find that be a neat connection when it comes to you interacting with hip hop artists and then in turn with wrestlers too?
Yeah, I've, as the years have gone on, of course, it's kind of become even more commonplace, because I think it's gotten a little cooler to talk about your love of wrestling maybe than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, certainly it's very common, and yeah, lots of lots of artists over the years, you know, referenced reference wrestling in different ways, you know, whether it's Method Man or Killer Mike or, you know, or Pusha T or whoever it would be. I mean, even people who did it in really casual ways, right? I mean, there are names like Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, The Undertaker that are just sort of like Shawn Michaels that are just like casually referenced, you know. A Big Pun was a big wrestling guy. I think he was actually at WrestleMania 15, if I'm not mistaken, in Philly.
Philly, yeah.
Full circle. So yeah, no, that was definitely part of it, was you know, it at least made it a lot more fun. It became a talking point. You know, I have certain relationships within hip hop. You know, my relationship with Wale, my relationship with Smoke DZA, my relationship with West Side Gun. These relationships are really, really deeply based in our love of pro wrestling. So it's sort of benefited me in all kinds of ways throughout my life.
Yeah, 100%. Talk about too just how you got into the WWE, like how'd that connection get made, and then the progress of you like being in there, doing the pre-shows, and then doing the really cool thing you did last year when you introduced the whole WrestleMania set. That was awesome. I remember seeing that from afar, even at the SoFi Stadium and stuff. So talk about
Yeah.
that.
So it started late 2016, I guess Mania that year, the
Mhm.
year prior to that, whatever number that would be, 32, 33, whatever, something like that. Um, I had I had just started working for ESPN maybe a year prior and developed a relationship with Coach. And Coach at that time, if you may or may not remember, he had a period towards the end of his ESPN run when he started sort of doing a little bit more WWE stuff. Like he would cover some stuff. And that year, and maybe it was 33, they brought like an actual Sports Center desk to Mania.
Oh, okay.
And Coach was there for that. He did some stuff at the Hall of Fame. And when I told him I was, you know, such a huge fan and I was doing the podcast, you know, and Coach was just like, "Hey man, come along. You want, you know, come to the Hall of Fame with me. Come to Mania with me." So I'm obviously already there. I'm doing my live podcast. I'm doing my thing. But then Coach um got me an all access sticker and was just like, "Come with me." And so I just sort of shadowed him that weekend. And you know, in doing so, obviously I knew at that point my share of people because I'd
Sure.
done a lot of interviews and I'd been around. But I was hanging out with Coach at WrestleMania watching. I did like one set. I did like one little segment with him on set, him and Snoop Dogg. We all kind of did a little thing at WrestleMania. But then I was just hanging off to the side, and there was a guy there hanging out. We struck up a conversation, and that guy's name was Chris Chambers. And you know, if you go back and watch, you'll see Chris's name on an endless amount of WWE television. He has a really illustrious career. He just recently retired, and is just a tremendous guy. And he was the first person who sort of heard me talk, heard my passion, heard the other places that I was working. I was kind of like, you know, I could kind of see how you could be useful here, you know? And he was like, "Do me a favor, reach out to me, you know, when you get back." So I reached out, and about a month passed, and I didn't hear anything. And I was about ready to be like, "Damn it, came close again." And I tried him one more time,
Mhm.
and he was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry I didn't get back to you. You got a few minutes to talk, whatever." And we got on the phone, and he basically was like, "Hey, I'd like to bring you on to do these pre-shows."
Mhm.
Um, he said, "And we're gonna do the same thing with Sam Roberts." And he said, "And also I have an idea for a show for you to host called Bring It to the Table."
Yeah, yeah.
And I said, yeah, please, when do we start this?
Yeah.
And so it was Tables, Ladders, and Chairs, December 2016, that I did my first one. I think Sam did the next one in January 2017. At that time, we used to like alternate on them, and then the show started. The Bring It to the Table run. We did that for 8 episodes, whatever it was, and yeah, I was kind of off to the races. And it's been a really fun bonus part of my career. You know, it's like the other jobs I really appreciate, but you do get used to them because they're every day.
Mm-hmm.
The WWE job maintains a certain bit of excitement and like thrill to it because I only do it monthly. So
Right.
like whenever I get there, it's like, yes, I'm back. Let's do it. So it ends up being sort of like, you know, work is probably not the right way to put it. It's a reprieve for me. It's something I truly look forward to doing. And, you know, I just always wanted to once I fell in love with it again, it like wasn't enough for me to watch it. I was like, I have to be part of the show. Like I love talking about it, but I really want to be part of this show. To me, it's magical, and I want to have that feeling. And I have it every time I'm there. And obviously, sitting here talking to you, just a few days away from WrestleMania week, everyone's excited about going to Philly, and I just feel very fortunate that when I go, I get to go, as I look at it, be a part of the show.
Yeah, what an atmosphere that is going to be too, from the ECW ties back in the day, but it just being such a wrestling town too, Philadelphia in general. So it's going to be really, really cool. I did have a colleague want to know too, what happened to Bring It to the Table? Like, what made it kind of go away? Was there a certain thing, or did it? What did you kind of want more out of it too when it was going on?
No, I don't. I think it was just a thing where they did it for a while. I guess the numbers didn't justify doing more of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not exactly sure. There was never much of a conversation, as often is the case in television, in my experience. Sometimes things just stop.
Right.
But no, we had a blast. Me, Graves, and JBL had a blast doing it. The first episode was me, Heyman, and JBL, if you recall.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Heyman was replaced with Graves, and then we did a whole bunch together. And when I go back and watch it, I actually I'm pretty impressed with what we did. I mean, it's relatively early in the WWE network days,
Mm-hmm.
compared to now at least. And I'm pretty impressed with kind of what we did as far as sort of blurring the line and breaking the fourth wall a bit, but without sort of totally knocking it down. That's probably the most underrated part of the work that I've done in WWE. And Sam and I talk about this a lot. It is an underrated skill set to be in the show while analyzing the show.
Right.
And everyone takes it for granted. And everyone who hates on me on social media and talks about how they could do a better job have no idea what you have to do. You're basically constantly translating in your head. This is how I feel. How am I going to say this within the show? Because I can't just go, yeah, I'm in the middle of the show. I can't just go, well, what Triple H should do is book a tag match.
Yeah.
I mean, Hunter should just, you can't do that. We're living, this is a TV show. We're living inside the TV show. So let's analyze, how would Nick Aldis make this match get made? You have to live inside the parameters that are there. It's one of the challenges of it and one of the fun things about it. And if you go back and watch Bring It to the Table, we did a pretty cool job of kind of talking ish and talking about what the internet was talking about without completely knocking it all down. So I'm proud of what we did. I think it was a lot of fun. I mean, some of my outfits I would go back and change. My style, my style in 2016 was still, I did not reach my sort of, and listen, God willing, I still haven't reached my physical peak, but I had not figured out my look on television yet. I was wearing a lot of t-shirts with the sport code. There's a lot of crazy shit going on there, but it was a long time ago.
Well, something that's really cool too, and I'm sure you've noticed it, and you kind of in some ways been a part of it too, is the production changes that WWE has gone through a lot recently. And you see that conveyed through Raw, through SmackDown, a lot of neat risks, quote unquote, being taken and stuff like that. What do you kind of think of that, and how it's been since somebody like Kevin Dunn has left, somebody that was a stalwart there, and now it's just bam, some fresh ideas conveying on screen there.
Yeah, no, it is a unique, fun time where you're seeing a lot of different changes and looks. A lot of the same people are there, but have different freedoms. There are new eyeballs there, and new decision makers there also that are changing the way things look. I think it's really cool. I mean, listen, my episode of Cheap Heat this week, I think the title was like the greatest Raw in 20 years, question mark. I mean, that's how strongly I felt about Raw this past week. So there's a lot of cool stuff happening. I think Mania is going to feel very different. My role at Mania is going to look different than it has in past years, which is exciting. It's going to look different. Like, obviously, I'm not going to give anything away, but I got our assignments yesterday, and things are going to look different. It's going to feel different. It's going to be, from a broadcast standpoint, a different feeling week. And whenever things like that happen, I think it's exciting. I mean, listen, there are certain things you always want to stay the same. And then there are certain things that will benefit from change. And then there are certain things you change and go, you know what? Maybe that was the way to do it. Or, you know what? Why did we ever do it that way? So, but you can't get there until you try things. And, listen, I know the internet has a lot to say about Kevin Dunn. There are things that Kevin came up with and that he does in a way that no one else ever has previously, and no one else has ever done as well. Like, people can say whatever they want, but there's a certain look and feel that exists in WWE television that is incredibly unique and high quality feeling. And that is just saying it's his fingerprints is not enough. I mean, it's more than that. It was really sort of his eye. So you got to give credit where credit is due for all the things you like about the product. If you want to tear down the things you didn't like, you got to also give credit for the things you did like. And there was a lot of great stuff there. But listen, he had a hell of a run. It's time for something new, and I'm excited to try the new thing. I love doing what I was doing. I love trying the new things too. I love TV. I love the excitement of live events. So, seeing different people's versions and visions for that is fun.
Absolutely. And yeah, to your point too, it's like you think about it from a head coaching standpoint in the NFL. Like Andy Reid was with the Eagles for how long? His time just ran out there, and that was kind of it. And then he reinvigorated himself back with Kansas City. So it's like, kind of make that kind of analogy with it. It makes a lot of sense too from there too.
Yeah.
So what do you think about The Rock and the final boss vibe? It's that Raw, you mentioned it. I mean, holy crap, what an entrance that is. Like, I was going to say, like, maybe the best entrance of all time I've ever seen. And I don't know if that's a prisoner of the moment, but I was really encapsulated by that. And what do you think about The Rock as the final boss? And then is he where do you think Roman Reigns in this situation too? It's like The Rock is really, he's a big star, so he takes up a lot of space.
He does take up a lot of space. My feelings have been evolving on both of those subjects. So initially, when The Rock first uttered the words final boss, I hated it.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, it's just what everyone was saying, but like, now it's going to get like, sometimes when things then end up in the show, it loses a little bit because it becomes like, now it's getting fed back to you. And so at first I was like, nah, this is stupid. Yeah. And then immediately I realized, so, and I love that. I love that I still get worked to this day. I was like, but I'm getting worked. It was supposed to make me feel that way. Like, it is obnoxious that he's doing that. He took it and he made it his, and he's a bad guy. Why wouldn't he do that? So then I got kind of into the final boss thing, and it actually kind of makes sense because he is the boss. So like, there are all these levels, right? And it starts telling another story about like such an easy beef to set up between him and Triple H and all these things that can exist because he's saying the final boss. So that grew on me quite a bit. I absolutely loved this week his entrance. Yeah, I mean, we're all probably prisoners of the moment to some degree, but the lightning, the music, it's hard to argue. It's up there, man. He's given us what we were waiting for a very long time. Like he keeps kind of answering the bell. Like last week or 2 weeks ago, the thing I complained about was, I was like, hey, can we just get The Rock to show up once when he's not advertised? Like, I don't want him to always be advertised. Sometimes Can you give us like the surprise? Boom, Monday we get surprise Rock, and it ends up being brutal and crazy. The Roman part of it, I think, is going to end up fine. I think you're kind of kidding yourself if you don't think he's been a little bit pushed aside here, because The Rock takes a lot of air. But at the same time, won't that help tell the story between The Rock and Roman, where we know we're going to go eventually? Couldn't it lead to the perfect face turn for Roman Reigns to have like such a reasonable thing to be angry about? If they end up going that way. So I think that one is, I'm not worried about Roman. People have been said things about Cody. I'm not worried about Cody. I understand the concerns for Seth a little bit more.
Me too, yeah.
But at the same time, I think we're being a little disingenuous if we pretend that the title Seth has is not the slightly secondary title. Like that is how it was created. It was created to be the title because Roman had a title.
Right.
So that title being slightly secondary is like, it's okay. Like, okay, Seth is playing second fiddle slightly to Cody Rhodes, who's having the hottest moment of his career, and in my opinion, is the most over babyface in maybe 20 years.
I agree, yeah.
The Rock, who's one of the greatest of all time, and is back in a real way for the first time in forever, and Roman Reigns, who's on a historic Hogan-like title run. So, like, let's not act as if being the fourth player in that story is some horrible thing. I mean, not everyone can be 1 and 1A. Like, it's okay. I mean, Seth is still, I think it's still an incredible spot for Seth. And I think he's doing great. And guess what? I think the story's going to end up being told well for him, too. I mean, listen, if Mania comes and he ends up sort of jobbing out in the tag match, and then it ends up being all about Drew and Punk in his match, and he has, okay, then let's have a conversation then. But yeah. I think let's wait and see how the weekend goes before we start having pity for the role Seth Rollins is playing in all of this as well.
I think that's an amazing perspective because, yeah, you're right. It's like, from a fan's look, it's like, oh my God, Seth is getting underutilized, or maybe he just feels like the fourth or fifth wheel when it comes to all this stuff. And here, no, there could be many possibilities. And like, we don't know what's going to happen, which is so great. That's the best part about wrestling, is blurring those lines and making it all happen. So
exactly. So I'm excited to see how it all plays out. I think everybody's going to be just fine. Excited to see what kind of surprises they come up with. I've heard some little things about sort of the music and celebrities that are going to be there. It's going to be a fantastic weekend. It's going to be, I think it's going to feel like the most special time that we've felt in this business in a very long time. I really do.
Absolutely. Well, cool, Peter. Thanks for joining me here, man. You got a lot of stuff on your plate, not just WrestleMania, but holy smokes. I mean, and there's going to be some crossover. Michael K is going to be, well, the Michael K show is going to be at WrestleMania World, but give us some details about everything you got going on, man.
Yeah, so the short of it is Thursday the 4th, the Michael K show, at least myself and Don LaGreca, we will be at WWE World doing the radio show live there. I think McAfee's doing his show on one stage from 12 to 3. Then we'll be doing our show on another stage from 3 to 6:30. Then that night, I have my Cheap Heat live at Fringe Arts in Philadelphia. It may be sold out by now. It may have a couple tickets left. That's all Thursday night, and then the work starts. The quote unquote work starts on Friday, and that's it. But yeah, I'm super looking forward to it, man.
Heck yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, and you do great work on all the shows that you do, and it's pretty neat to just get a different perspective from a guy that's been outside of the wrestling realm, too. And I think that adds a lot of value to everything. So,
thanks, Dom. I appreciate that, man.
You're welcome. Yeah. All right, guys, we'll see you here next time on SEScoops.com.